3. The Crew of the Lost Light, More Than Meets the Eye Transformer Comics. Now, if you're only familiar with Transformers very casually, you know the original 1980s cartoon. You're aware, of course, Michael Bay made some movies in the last few years that a lot of people get made a lot of fun of, but they still make like almost $1 billion a piece. And you're just like, you know, oh man, Transformers were great in my day, and now I got these movies that are just not so good. You know, I still think the first movie is really damn good. But anyway, yeah, I feel you. But there was a lot of other There's a lot of other Transformer fiction out there. If you're not a huge fan like myself, you might have, you know, it's easy to not know that there was anything else. Beast Wars is a great story. Came out in the mid '90s. Transformers Animated was an outstanding story. Even the new Transformers Prime just wrapped up not too long ago. It was a really good series. Comic-wise, the '80s had their own comic that was kind of their own thing. And right now there's two ongoing series from IDW Comics, Robots in Disguise and More Than Meets the Eye. They've been doing comics for I think the last 7 or 8 years. It's kind of an ongoing storyline. And these two comics have basically ended up in just the question, what happens when the war is over? You know, we've always had the war of Autobots, Decepticons, Optimus versus Megatron. It's a constant battle. War without end. The corrosion of the war without end. You know, however you want to say. But this is after this. The war was over, and Autobots won. Everybody comes back to Cybertron. They're trying to figure out how to create peace, or how to coexist. Autobot, Decepticon, non-affiliated. Non-affiliated intelligent life form, the Nails, play a big part in the story. That's more taking place in the Robots in Disguise book. To tell you how well they're doing with coexisting, they elected Starscream later. Yeah, they're doing that good. On the other hand, there is the More Than Meets the Eye, which is a quest book. And this one is a little different because this is less of a straightforward quest, because the quest doesn't really matter. If you're a fan of the book, you don't care about their quest for find the ancient knights of Cybertron. You care about the characters, and this is what makes More Than Meets the Eye such a good book. Crew of the Lost Light. It's a ragtag collection of some of the most oddball Autobots and non-affiliated, and even a couple Decepticons. You know, traveling across the galaxy trying to find these ancient, supposed great knights of Cybertron, but really the story is driven by the characters. It's written by a man named James Roberts, and he is just writing one of the most brilliant takes on Transformers I've ever read, seen, anything. And this is from a very hardcore fan my entire life. This book is so good. This quest is just, it's a chance to put everyone kind of in, you know, basically they're on a ship, they're traveling through space, bad things are always happening, they're always pulling through it, and seeing all these little characters just interact, and just the quirky takes he takes on all these different personalities and how they coexist. You know, you have Swerve, who's the wisecracking bartender. You have Whirl, who's, you know, basically insane. You have the extremely uptight, rule-abiding Ultra Magnus. You have, you know, the brash young leader, Rodimus Prime. Spoiler alert, Megatron becomes co-captain at some point as an Autobot. Yeah, that happens. You have Ratchet, you know, great story. You have a new character just to the book, a guy named Rung, who is a psychiatrist, and him trying to deal with all these crazy people, among a ton of others. And it's just really, really, really good storytelling. It's, I mean, like I said, I don't think people who enjoy the story care about the actual quest. I don't think the people on the ship care that much about the actual quest. They just want the adventure, and we're along for the ride. And sometimes that's the best kind of quest. So, I'll do another video on More Than Meets the Eye later, so I won't get too much into it, but definitely on my list. Even though it's still ongoing, it's still pretty fresh. Without a doubt, one of my favorite quest stories of all time already. Number 2. The Bride, Kill Bill 1 and 2. Definitely one of my all-time favorite movies of all time. It's Kill Bill, Volumes 1 and 2. It's really one movie, split in two because it was so long. Split well, just the way he divided. If he had to divide it, he ended up remixing it, re-editing. He did a great job. So, talking about Quentin Tarantino, Story about Uma Thurman playing the Bride. This is all we know of her by the beginning. A world-class assassin who finds out she's pregnant by her boss and leaves her team of assassins and runs off to the desert of Texas. She's about to get married to a man she meets, and her boss, ex-lover, and his team find her and kill her. Or they think they do. Turns out they just put her in a coma for 5 years, and she wakes up and she's not happy. And she's going on a roaring rampage of revenge. That is her quest. What makes this so good, besides the visual storytelling style of Quentin Tarantino, is the relentless pursuit she has, and also her, I think, overlooked a lot is her actual motivation, not just the revenge for what they did to her, but this is the grief of a mourning mother. And I think this gets underplayed a lot in the Kill Bill storyline. She was pregnant. She wakes up, she doesn't, it's 5 years later, there's no baby in her belly. This drives her more, I think, than just getting back at everybody. And she's not subtle about it. She got her first target, Oren Ishii, she goes after in Japan, just straight on, goes into the House of the Falling Leaves, calls her out, takes on her whole army, basically taking her out and then announcing to everyone else on the team what she's going on. So and what also kind of interesting is no one hides from her. Everyone else stands their ground and they're ready to fight. Veronica Green is still playing homemaker at her house. She knows what happened, but she's just sitting there with her husband and kid, just waiting for her to come, and that's what she does. And same thing with Bud, who doesn't get the drop on her, but he didn't run. He sat right in his trailer and waited for her to show up. And kind of honor among thieves. Same thing with Bill. At the end if you watch the end of the movie, Bill definitely knew she was coming. Pablo, I'm talking about this assuming you've seen the movie, but Pablo is sitting there. Pablo probably called him, told her she was coming. He probably had eyes on her coming into town. He was definitely waiting for her. So there's a weird honor among them, and people are willing to give her the respect to at least have a fighting chance to get her revenge done. And of course, Bill drops the biggest bomb on her, which is her daughter's still alive. He has her, his daughter also. That's the end of our movie. I think one of the most powerful scenes in any movie is just after she defeats Bill, she kills Bill, and her daughter are back on the road. They're in a hotel room, and she just breaks down in the bathroom, just crying out of just relief and gratitude. Her daughter's still alive. It's an amazing scene. I don't think it gets enough appreciation. It's a culmination of this great quest to kind of cleanse her palate. She was just doing it as a grieving mother, and the best situation happened. She succeeded. She beat all the bad guys, and bonus, she got her daughter back. She never thought she would get back again. It's a fantastic movie. There's so many great just odes to everything. Kung fu movies, spaghetti westerns. It's Quentin Tarantino. You can go online and read about all the little touches from different movies he puts in there. But really overlooked is just the quest storytelling in this. Just how she goes about it. She's got, under no uncertain terms, she's going to do it this way. She's letting her know she's coming. She hopes they're ready for him, and it's just going to happen. And I think when I like a quest, certain types of these kind of quest stories, I like that dogged determination to kind of a stubbornness to get it done, and you definitely see that in this. And if you haven't seen Kill Bill, I probably spoiled it for you, but you shouldn't have watched this if you didn't. Anyway, and my number one pick for a protagonist character in a quest story is Roland from the Dark Tower series, Stephen King series of novels, also some comic book adaptations. This is an epic story. So we talked Lord of the Rings. This is even longer. There are 7 main books and an 8th side quest story. There's a series of comic adaptations, a couple of short stories along the way. And this story is really the story of, definitely a man obsessed. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. That's how we start. That's actually how we end the story. Spoiler alert. But I, I, I think part of this is just the epicness. This is the first time for me personally where, I waited so long to get a story done. I started reading The Dark Tower in the 9th grade, and I finished it, which would have been 91, and I finished it in 2004. So 13 years it took me to get from beginning to end, and that wasn't even when the first book came out. That was when I started on it. The original Dark Tower's first story came out in the late 70s, and it was 10 years between that book, or collection of the short story collected the stories into a book that would have been published in a men's magazine and put it in a book. And it was like another 10 years before the second book came out, Drawing of the Three, and around 87. A couple of years later, he did the third book. Then it was like 6 years for the fourth, which wasn't even a continuing story. It was a flashback. So the story really didn't move from the wastelands to until like 03 with Wolves of the Calla. So the story really didn't move between like 91 to 03. So that kind of plays into it because it was a lot of waiting, and it was just so different. If you are a Stephen King fan, his best work, the motif he usually likes to do is normal people doing normal things, and all of a sudden something really terrible happens. Horror, whatever, and it's what he's really good at. He's really good at painting that scene, painting these people. You're just like, I know that guy, I know a person like that. That sounds like my cousin, my aunt, whatever. And seeing how they react to just bloody horror half the time is, I think, always a drawing of his stories. This is totally different. This is apocalyptic, future, sci-fi, fantasy meets spaghetti western. And you have Roland Deschain, son of Stephen, the last of the gunslingers, and he's on a quest to find the Dark Tower. We're very unclear from the first book what exactly it is. We don't know. It takes a while as the story progresses to know exactly why it's so important he goes there. You don't really. The first book is more about him finding the Man in Black, who he's chasing across the desert, and we kind of get this beautiful, kind of really nice painted picture in our head of this kind of deserted place it's kind of falling apart as he's traveling, following this man. And as they say, the world has moved on, and we kind of see that. And in the second book, we meet the rest of our protagonists, the future new gunslingers who are pulled in from our own world, from the 80s, the 70s, and the 60s. In the third book also, we kind of get a tie-in, in terms of like epic quests. It's always great when you tie in a bunch of other stuff. Stephen King's always been good about interlacing his works, and this is the biggest of the interlacings because so much from a lot of his other stories come in here. And you see how much like It and The Talisman, Drawing of the Three, The Stand, all these books tie in to the Dark Tower in some way. We get a little bit of kind of backstory on Mr. Roland. Like I said, book 4 is his backstory of his lost love. And we do kind of start getting a picture of the Dark Tower, why it's going there. This is the Nexus Fall reality. It's falling apart. There's a man called the Crimson King. He's trying to destroy it. There's another man who's kind of his right-hand man, Flag, who, if you've ever seen or read The Stand, of course he's in The Stand. He's also in Eyes of the Dragon. We run into him a bunch of times. And Roland's just always going forward. He is the most stubborn man alive. He's also a complete badass. We talked about Marv being a badass. Roland would destroy him. Roland is a fucking man. As I said, he's the last gunslinger. They all got murdered. He's the only guy that survived. That's how badass he was. But I think by the end of it, what really makes his story so fascinating overall to me still is it isn't about saving the world, or the universe and all the universes. It's good that it happens and he works towards that, but it's just about his obsession. He's determined to see the Dark Tower. There was, spoiler alert again, if you read the last book, there was no reason for him to continue on to the tower. They get to a certain point where they stop all the bad stuff happening to the tower. It's starting to repair itself. But he has to go. and that's what it was about all along with him. That he just single-mindedly doing it. And spoiler it again, at the end of the book, he's kind of trapped in this time loop where he just keeps doing the story over and over again until basically he becomes a better person, I guess. There's a big telling point in the first book where he lets Jake die. It's kind of telling of his level of obsession, that Jake was falling down a shaft and he could have saved him, but it would have taken him time to get down and get him. And the man in black stands over him from a high up and says, if you save him, you'll never catch me. I'll be too far gone. And he lets Jake die. And that was just kind of a telling. It was a shock to, Stephen King's protagonists. They have flaws, sure. They're not always the best people, excepting of your Jack Torrances who, go crazy from demons or whatever. They're usually just, they're good people at heart. This isn't the action of a good person. And it's kind of telling, how far his obsession runs. And after all this time chasing the man in black, all this time looking for the Dark Tower, he's not going to let it go because of this boy who he's become to love stand in his way. And it's a moral choice he makes, and he pays for it in a lot of ways throughout the book. Jake actually comes back, but doesn't mean it helps. That decision still haunts him to the end, basically. So there's a bit of redemption on that with him in the 7th book, but still, it's this is the quest of obsession, and those are, I think, the best ones. Just where the main character is cool. He's not crazy. He's not grieving. He's not trying to save the world, even though he is. He's just like, I have to have this thing. I have to see the tower. I gotta go do it. The rest of my life, anything else is just window dressing for the guy. And I said, if it's a lot to read, and if you really, to get the full picture, it's a lot of Stephen King to read, because, like I said, so many other books tie into it. You don't necessarily have to read them. You could read the main 7, and then the 8th after, in between story. It doesn't. There's fine. Maybe the Black House I would suggest also reading, because there's a strong tie in there. But it's worth it if you just like great epic fantasy storytelling. Just a great quest story. Not quite in the straight fantasy vein, but more in that King twist to it. And Roland's just a fascinating, haunting character. As King says, the hardest character he's ever had to write. That's why it takes him so long between books, because Roland there's something about him that kind of disturbs him. And you can definitely tell he's not written like anything else that he wrote. He's been in TV or movie production hell for the last decade. I think they've been trying to get either a TV show, probably on like an AMC or Showtime, or some kind of movie made, and nothing ever seems to go through. So hopefully someday, hey, I did leave off one of my honorable mentions, Preacher, another comic book, The Quest to Find God, is getting made into a series on AMC. So that's cool. Hopefully the Dark Tower will get similar treatment. But Preacher I'll probably cover on my top 10 characters of all time. But as one quest guy I did leave off. Call him an honorable mention here. So that's going to do it for the Salty Seaman. If you have any of your favorite protagonists on a quest stories you would like to talk about, feel free to talk about it in the comments. If I've heard of it, I may talk to you about it. If you like this video and other videos I do, please hit the subscribe button. I do all sorts of geeky, fun stuff. I talk about MMA, I talk about comic books, I talk about heavy metal, all sorts of fun stuff. Keep it locked right here, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.